Welcome back everyone to the Hello World Guy. This is episode number 3 of the the C++ series in which we are learning how C++ works. So in this video we are going to go along with our which we had in the last video, and we are going to try to basically understand what all of this means. So in the last video we discussed the comments, and we discussed how to change this text that displays on the screen, and now we are going to actually discuss what all of these other symbols mean and why they are necessary, and what can do to change them, and what kind of effects that would have. So let's first of all, if I go up here on the line 4, and by the way you can see we have got our lines labeled here, which kind of makes it easier to find a reference quickly. So yeah, this is pretty cool, so you can kind of take advantage of this. So on line 4 you can see we have got hashtag include, and here we have got angle brackets, and inside of there we have got IO stream. Now what this means, now in order to understand this, you must understand that C++ is basically a way of communicating with the computer and nothing more. It does not provide you any way to do input or output or anything else. It only allows you to kind of communicate with the computer, add variables and change stuff, and like move stuff to memory and get it out of it and stuff like that. So but of course you won't like to have to implement all of the other things by yourself. So for that, C++ provides a extensive and a very large collection, and a very useful one, of standard libraries, which are stuff that other programmers basically have done for you, which have got like basic stuff like input and output and some algorithms and math stuff and other stuff implemented already, and you can actually use those stuff without having to kind of implement everything yourself. So yeah, you won't have to like reinvent the wheel. So the basically idea here with this is that in order to use another library is basically in a header file, and in order to use that file that is called a header file, what you do is you use this hashtag include. So like in the beginning of the program most commonly, so you can actually insert it anywhere, but most commonly in the beginning of the program you go ahead and say hashtag, and then you say include, and then you put angle brackets, and in between the angle brackets you put the name of the library that you want, and that would include that library, and you can use with that whenever you want. Now you obviously don't need to use the library, you can just include it, but that would just increase the size of your program a little bit, so most modern compiles can get around that. Let's see. So if I type hashtag include again, you can see it's giving me an error because I have not specified a library yet. And if I put like these, it's still giving me an error because I have not put a correct name there. And if I put just whatever I want, that still gives me error because this library does not exist. So what I need to do is I need to put something that exists here. Now one library that exists is called string. Now we will discuss what this library is used later, but you can see if I do that, the error goes away, and now I can actually use this library if I want to. So we don't need to do that right now, so I'm going to just remove it. So this is basically how libraries and stuff work, and that's the reason we have got this hashtag include line in here. Alright, so now after that we have got that done. Now let's just move on to this thing here, which may look a bit weird to you, but before we do that, one thing that I want you to understand is that these white space, which means these empty lines, don't actually matter. You can add as many of these as you want to make your code a bit more readable, but these don't actually matter. You don't like it won't actually change anything in the actual program. It's just there for like nothing. So after that, let's just go to this, and what this basically is, you can see that we have got curly brackets here, and we have got int here, and then we have in front of that we have got main, then we have got parentheses. And what is this? So basically a C++ program is divided into a bunch of functions. A function is basically like a piece of code that actually does something. It does some work, and you can use that function as many times as you want. So you can create functions, and then you can use them in other functions. Now all of these functions behave that way. You create them and you use them, or someone else creates them and you use them. No function executes by itself except one function, which is the main function. Now what this function does, which we have got here, you can see it says main. What this function does basically is that it starts executing as soon as the program begins, which means that you don't need to actually have to tell this function to execute itself. It executes automatically when the program begins, and this must be named main, and every program must have one function, and exactly one function called main. And in here so basically how a function is organized, so you can see that first of all we put int here. Now you can obviously put other stuff here which we will get to later what this actually means, but just understand that you put int int, and then you need to put the name of the function, which you can put whatever you want for normal functions, but for main it must be main. But obviously for other functions you can put whatever you like. And then you need to put a pair of parentheses after that, which marks this as a function. And you don't need to worry yourself with anything else for right now. Just remember to put int, then the name of function, then parentheses, and then you put curly brackets here. Now in between these curly brackets is the actual body of the function, which is the stuff that the function actually does. Anything you put in here will execute when the function is called, and since this is the main function, and this is where program execution begins, and this is where everything will actually start. So yeah, that's the main idea, and I'm actually going to delete these comments here because we don't need them anymore. And up here you can see we have got this function which tells us that this file contains the main function, and program execution begins and ends there. So yeah, this basically tells you how this works. So the program will start executing with this line that we have got here, and it will end when we get to the end of this line. Now what this lines means, so this is got a bunch of stuff going on and you might not understand everything. So basically I told you before about libraries that come with C++, with the C++ package, and you do not need to do anything separate to install them. These libraries are called standard libraries. Now you must understand that when we include the header, we are essentially like literally copy pasting the whole thing here, and because there might be things that have got like similar names, everything has got similar names, and if that happens, then it might produce conflicts about which library you are actually trying to use if you've got a bunch of headers included and they contain things with similar names, and it might be a bit difficult to recognize them. So for that reason you use something called namespaces. A namespace is basically a way of organizing stuff. So the standard, everything standard is put in this std standard namespace, and the way if you hover over this, you can see it says namespace std. And the way you use a namespace is you put the namespace, then you put 2 colons, and then you put the actual thing that you should use. Now putting a, because the standard namespace is used quite often, it might become kind of a headache to put std and then 2 colons after that everywhere when you use something from this namespace. So a way to avoid that is to go up here, and I'm going to create a lines here, and you can use a namespace. When you do that, you don't need to put the namespace name before using anything of that namespace. So this C out here is stands for common output. We'll get to that in a second. This is a part of the std namespace, a standard namespace, and we use these columns to access it. But and if I remove these columns, C++ will not recognize this cout, and it will throw an error, as you can see it does. But if we go up here and we put here the keyword using, and you must put this using exactly, and then you can say using, and then you say namespace. So using namespace, and then you put the name of the namespace, which in this case is std. It will make that namespace implicitly included, and you can actually use cout without having to specify that. So from the now on, our program will have this line included, and this is not considered a very good practice, but for beginners you don't need to worry about that too much. So now we can actually understand what is actually going on in this output line. So how output works in C++. So that's what we need to find out right now. But that is what we'll do in the next video. In the next video we will discuss output and input and stuff. So yeah, stay tuned for the next one, and I will see you in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and share this video with other people, and well, bye.